You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold, episode 21. We're very pleased today, very excited to have our special guest, Todd Burnham. He's the founding partner of Burnham Law in Boulder, Colorado, with offices in 5 or 6 other towns around Colorado. Welcome, Todd. Thanks for joining us.
Is it Ben or Benny? I'm kind of liking Benny.
Yeah, call me Benny. That's cool. I love it.
I love it. It's going well, man. Thanks for having me on.
You got it, man. I'm glad we finally got to connect. I know it's been a while since we've been trying to do this. So thanks for, coming out tonight.
It's all good. My pleasure, man.
So one question I love to kick it off with, and like that I'm super interested in, and I think a lot of like the Lawyer Stories community is interested, is like, what was that moment in your life where you were like, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to law school?
So I went to Hobart College in upstate New York. I was raised by a single mom who was a social worker, right? So like I grew up on the south side of Syracuse, ended up, my mother moved us, and I got in trouble a lot. And so like, I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm, kid that didn't grow up with much. And I had, one dude named Jeff Gosh that would always get me out of trouble. And so I went to Hobart, I played lacrosse, and that's pretty much all I did. I wasn't really focused. I wasn't focused at the time. And I'm like, everyone else has these jobs lined up, and I go to Australia, I coach underprivileged kids lacrosse.
Wow.
And I'm over there, I'm like, shit, man, I have got to do something. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Like there's no vision, right? But I always knew that a law degree is something, as my mother would say, like they can never take that away from you.
Right.
And that education of just learning, not knowing what I was going to do, I just knew I was going to become more educated. And for me, that was everything. And it was during a time when, if you don't know like what you want to do, you can move towards something that's going to be valuable no matter what. Right. And I just thought that there's and I think MBAs, a lot of people have those, and there's I have a competitive drive to me that I'm like, well, I got to pass a bar. Like there's some challenges, and I really like that. So
that was the hurdle that made you the professional passing the bar. So your mom said they can't take it away from you. And another thing, a lot of people say you could do so much with it. I mean, I've heard the arguments like either or, like you can do a lot with it, the law degree, or you can't. I mean, depending on like where you are in life, you can make that argument, I think. But so you're in Colorado now, but you were in New York. You went to Hobart, you played lacrosse, and then you went to Albany Law. So
ended up in Albany Law.
Tell me, like, what was law school like for you? Like, were you a gunner? Like, did you raise your hand? Did you try to cut the pages out of the books, like when people were in the library? Or
probably a little bit of all that, man. Like, you find out where the metal tape is,
Yeah.
No, I mean it was before like emails and the internet,
Right.
So.
Let me interrupt. Like, I think I was the last class that actually had to go into the stacks. Like, I always looked at it as like traditional. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
It's like late at night. There's like a candle on the desk, and like you're
that's
going
exactly
through
right.
the stacks. But like you look at people now, and they're just like Google, like they're looking at like all the other search engines, and like, so anyway, go ahead.
I'm with you, man.
So you didn't have social media, you didn't have any of that, like you didn't.
I had nothing, and so it was, for me, it was just grinding that first year, and then after that, it was, for me, it was, I still didn't like find that purpose. I was just getting by, like I probably did a lot through college. And I still wasn't like I'm in law school, but I'm still not focused, So, I did okay my first year, and I didn't even understand what law review was. Like
Right.
that wasn't even a thing, right? And
Right.
and then I just bartended. I literally was just trying to connect with people. I had a business card that I would hand out to people. Like even at that time, when I look back on these things now, I'm like, oh man, I'm just an entrepreneur.
So
Like
you were bartending when?
during law school,
During
second
law
year,
school?
third
And you had
year.
a business card that was like, "Hey, I'm at Albany Law."
Todd Burnham,
Todd Burnham. Yeah.
lawyer in the future, something like
Yeah,
that.
that's cool. All right.
Yeah, it is, but it was like I still didn't, I didn't know. I was just like, I'm just trying to connect somehow. I was the guy that like if there, like I would rent an apartment or something, and if there was like a parade or something, I was the guy out there that had a cooler and it was $2 a beer as people
Right.
walked by,
Right.
right? So it was just kind of I was always thinking about business and I didn't really understand like how it
Right.
worked, you know. Yeah, so it was, it sucked, at the end, especially for the bar.
Wow. Okay. So it sucked. Like you didn't you mentioned law review, but you didn't do any of that. Like you didn't even know what it was. Like you sort of. So like what
Man.
courses did you really like take to in?
During my I think it was my third year, my mother got really sick.
Okay.
So it was just, it was something for me at least that I had to get done. I had to do, but it wasn't my focus. It was really about trying to help my family out, survive, and get prepared enough for the bar. So the things that I took the New York bar, and I took the classes that were bar prep. That was the big thing for me. A lot of people would take the things that you're going to coast by. I figured,
Right.
look, if I'm not trying to get my grades up here,
Right.
I'm just gonna what's the practical effect of taking these harder classes?
Smart.
So I took conflicts of law, things like that. The things that were really specific to New York. And at Albany Law, there was a professor named Professor Siegel, who's since passed, but he was like the guru of civil procedure in New York. So you knew that if you took those classes, it was easier. The bar, it was prepping you for the bar when you didn't have to take a bar review course.
That's
So
smart.
yeah, I mean, I just tried to just grind through it,
That's
got through it.
awesome. So you were in New York. So like how did you end up out? Well, first of all, let me ask you this. Did you have any mentors along the way? Any mentors in law school, any legal?
Man, my mentors, and this is what kind of tells my story a little bit. What my mentors have all been coaches.
Okay.
They're never
Great.
lawyers. Yeah, it was just like my high school lacrosse coach, my college lacrosse coach, like people that I saw and I wanted to emulate. And one of them was Paul Chapman. He was my JV lacrosse coach. He was a lawyer that my mother knew doing family law. So he was a divorce lawyer.
Okay.
And a family law attorney. He had his dog out there. It was like, and I'm a kid that, didn't have much. And I'm like, that's a cool life, and it always just kind of stuck with me. Like, it was the first time I saw like a vision of something that was attractive to me.
So what did he do? Tell us again what he did.
He was he's a family law attorney. I think now he's in Cicero, New York.
Okay.
He coached us at Fayetteville Manlius High School.
Gotcha. Okay.
And he was just a tough guy that was just super cool. And that was literally like what attracted me.
Sometimes it hits you. You're like, wow, that's it.
Yeah, it seemed like, it was, he was an attorney. Again, my background is everything, right? And so growing up with a single mom social worker, you're not exposed to those things unless you get in trouble, right?
Right. So it probably hit you like, wow, I can do that and I can do this. Like I can do
these things. Yeah. It was
those things can coexist, sort of. Right?
Totally, and it kind of like was the thing that kind of formed the ways that I was looking at everything at that time. So
right.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't look at it as mentors. And as soon as I started practicing, I've done a couple things, and it was just the one other person I would think of as a mentor was my first business partner in real estate, Jack Nielsen. And he was a former commissioner of public safety, retired. And he was just like it's more like a figure, like a father figure as a coach.
Yeah.
And so in that respect, it was more like a life coach and giving me some business ideas. And so I like to think that everything that I've done, I've taken something that was relevant and I've really applied it.
Right.
And that's kind of how I've done it.
That's awesome, man.
Right.
So no, that's super cool. So you're in New York. How did you end up in Colorado?
So I'm in New York, and I start a real estate law firm, right? And this is one of those lessons that I learned, and kind of we can talk about it. But I'm like, I like real estate, so I ended up setting up a law firm. I was the representative. I owned a title company. I represented the bank at closings.
So this was New York State, though, wasn't it?
New York State. This is upstate New York, like Albany area. And then at the same time, I reconnect with my college girlfriend, who was like the one that got away, right? I'm like, Katie Ramsey, I'm going to marry that woman. And then we dated, and then it, blew up because I was just probably a child. And so she reached out to me like 2007, actually May 20th, 2007. And it was before, like, not on Facebook. She like emailed me, and we connected, and I ended up, she lived in Boulder, Colorado. And then the recession hit, and then the business tanked.
Oh.
So all these things happening at the same time. And I was investing in real estate too, because it was a boom, right?
In New York?
In upstate New York.
Wow.
Yeah. It was brutal. And so I was going back and forth, like, talk about long distance relationship. Like I'd, be flying out, flying back, trying to keep a business up.
Right.
And trying to like make connections with other title companies. How can I, and it was just going, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, it hit, it's real estate, and all eggs were really in that basket. And that was one of the, big lesson. And a couple of things that I got from that was, one, you can't ever just go after the money. Even if you like something, if you're interested in, you got to really have a passion for it. If it's a business, it's got to be.
So I also think on that note, like, you're not going to succeed unless you have a passion for it, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, and then you're starting to think like, all right, what are the things that really interest me? So I then have to close shop, go out to, live. I started in a basement, this unfinished basement in Erie, Colorado. I've got 2 stepkids.
So you went out there. Wait, so why did you end up going? You went out there. Why? Sorry.
I just said, like, I'm going to marry this woman, and we dated.
Oh, so you went out there for her. Okay.
Went out there for her. And she had 2 stepkids.
Okay.
I had two stepsons while I was dating, and then she owned a maternity company, like a business in downtown Cherry Creek in Denver. All the time, all these things are crashing on you in terms of the economy, much like not much like what's happening now, but I mean, like, it's similar.
Yeah.
And then I had to start something new there. I was winding down New York. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm going to do bankruptcy. Everyone's into bankruptcy now. Right. And I started that business, and it kind of reiterated the fact that, like, it propped up what I ended up doing, but it wasn't who loves bankruptcy? Right. So then I started, after that point, getting into, family law, and then it just caught it all.
So like, let me ask, first of all, like, what year did you graduate law school from?
2000.
Okay. So how did you learn, like, when you said, okay, I'm going to go into bankruptcy, like, how did you know what the heck to do for freaking bankruptcy? Like, did you just get a program and you brought people in and you're like, I'm going to put you through bankruptcy. Like, let's do this. Like,
I said, I'm going to find the best paralegal that I can find. And I found a paralegal that worked for one of the trustees, and they're allowed to work on the side. You just can't have the same cases. You can't go in front of that paralegal's trustee. And that paralegal taught me everything.
Smart.
Right. And so what I did is I set up the ColoradoBankruptcyCenter.com, threw together and it's the beginning of this.
The center. Wow.
Oh, yeah. I'm
legit,
statewide, And
that's like Colin, like that's like the equivalent of being like opening a dance hall and being like the grand ballroom,
It is.
It's amazing.
No, man, Springsteen's playing next. Like, so, like, all these things, but at the same time, I'm learning, right?
Right.
And I learned, like, okay, bankruptcy sucks. I don't like doing that. And I started getting into family law, and I'm like, oh, it makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's all. So were you like, okay, family law now? Like how super interesting.
My first thing that someone, when I started, I had this flyer that I put in the local newspaper, and it was, Burnham Law, we fix problems.
Okay.
And some guy came in and he said, like, I have a contempt case in this domestic.
So like you were like, we fix problems, but we're just like not gonna really like boil what problems.
No, it's like,
so
what
just
kind of
like
law do you practice? What kind of law do you need?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Hey man, I got an instant family. I don't have a business.
Yeah.
I had to succeed somehow. And I said, okay, I'm just gonna, meat and potatoes, I'm gonna do bankruptcy.
Dude, I love it. Just by your spirit and your attitude,
yeah,
you're gonna be successful. No, I really believe that. So, and you are. I mean, so that's the conclusion of everything. We're going through the whole. So okay, go ahead. Like you said.
So I get into family law, and I'm still doing bankruptcies, and I'm like, hold on a second, I get this stuff. I mean, think about it. I'm from a divorced family. My mother was a social worker who dealt with neglected children, right? So this is the stuff that I grew up with anyway. And
so the guy came to you and he said, I have a divorce. Like I'm going.
Yeah, no, he had a contempt. And it was, I tell you that this was my first experience in Colorado. You'll get a kick out of this. Like this guy I was up against would not let me talk. He kept interrupting me. Just like, I'm like, what am I in New York? Like this, he's
right.
Back hair, it's all white. He's just on the golf course. Hi, honey. I'm doing something. Oh, you did? Awesome job. Okay, I love you. Okay, cool. Sorry, man.
Hi.
That was okay. Clara.
That's great.
Hi. Where was I? What was I talking about?
So the guy comes in.
Yeah. So he's like, he's not. It's just like totally disingenuous, and I'm trying to like get a resolution. I'm like, come on, man, the guy can't pay, right? And like, let's figure something out. And he kept interrupting me, and I finally stood up and I just shushed him. I was like, shh.
Yeah.
And the judge, who's like the head judge in Boulder, was like, Mr. Burnham, did you just shush opposing counsel? And I'm like, yeah, my apologies. Like that was the level of experience I started with, right? Yeah. I was just going. And so after that, I said, all right, that's it. I'm going to become a master at this thing. Like that's never going to happen again. Like
a master at family law.
Family law and being prepared. And I said, you know what? I can build this thing. I feel really good. I've seen what's out there and I saw what he did. And I'm like, oh, if I'm prepared, I could dominate. That was my mindset.
How did that hearing go? Did shushing him, was that not?
Didn't work.
It didn't work, but
it wasn't effective.
But that was the lesson, and that was the opportunity where you said to yourself, I could be the best at this. I'm going to learn this. And it's actually, you might have had a revelation too. You're like, my mom was a social worker.
It all connected.
What's that?
It all connected for me.
Connected.
It was like, and it wasn't, the law was never something that I was in love with, but I found that, I also didn't like to lose. And losing cases was something that I took really personally. And I didn't want to be someone that is just going to go through the motions, is going to make a buck. And then, you're stressed out. You're not happy. I start like, I wanted to do something great. I wanted that to be who I was. I just had a child. Like my first child is a daughter. I'm like, I want her to be proud. Like, so I just,
but it's interesting because like, you might have had like not a negative experience, but like when you shushed the guy and the judge like questioned you, but you still wanted to go on with family law.
Yeah. Because the lesson I learned was that, if you're going to have to know, it's not like you can roll in and just be like, hey, we're going to try to resolve this. If that's not going to happen, then you got to know your case. You got to know the facts. You got to know the law, and you got to know it cold. And so I didn't want to be someone that was reading. I wanted to be great at something.
But there was but like you could have been great at torts. Like you could have been a personal injury lawyer. You could have been great at like criminal law. But there was something about family law after that day that you were like, I want to just keep doing this. And I know you do some other type of law at your firm, but
yeah. No, but it connected, it resonated for me because I'm like, hold on a second. Like you just take a step back and say, I understand this stuff. The contempt thing is really, it's not so much about children, right? do you owe money to this person? Do you have the ability to pay? That's not passion. That's like, all right, let's make sure you don't go to jail here. And but for that, it was successful, right?
So, yeah.
But there was more. And as I got into it more, and then I have other cases coming in, and I'm like, oh, I've got this. And it's just, and it resonated with me that I'm like, I'm passionate about it, and I want to be effective.
So you want to be effective about family law.
Totally.
So and this is something like I want to connect with, because I went to your website today. Amazing website. Everybody should check it out. It's really well done.
Thank you.
Team looks awesome. I'd love to talk with like everybody on your team, and like maybe we could talk about featuring them, whatever.
Love it.
Lawyer Stories. That's lawyer_stories, but on Instagram. But
nice.
So one thing I noticed like about the write-up about yourself, and I want you to sort of, so it talks about you talk about being emotionally intelligent in your legal representation.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. Like, emotional intelligence, like I consider myself like very emotional intelligent. That's sort of how I got going with like Lawyer Stories, and like understanding people, and like, you know, and being able to connect with people from like all over the globe. So like my question is like, how do you define emotional intelligence, and like how do you use that in your practice, and like why emotional intelligence is so important to you?
Well, I mean, and that's not something that I had with this practice early on. There's, it takes time, it takes experience to be able to connect and connect the dots and see just the short term and the long term. Sometimes like it's, you want to add value in a way that
Right.
you're thinking about a case and the implications, not right now, but also what it's going to look like in a year from now. Like, don't want to be the cliche of, always having the same problems come back to you for a case. I want people to end their conflict. I want it to be like, I want us to like, I don't want us to start cases. I want to finish cases. Right. I want to have kids that, I want to represent parents who are so invested in their kids that they want them to be like developmentally, stable and not have all this conflict. And so to have emotional intelligence, I think, is to see the 30,000 foot view. And
right. That's exactly right. Yep.
Right. And so, and not just, you're not just in the dirt, you're actually saying, let's look at the big picture here. And then that helps you even from a litigation standpoint. Then you're looking at it from a strategic standpoint, and you're saying, all right. And then it starts like, I start thinking about like my background in psychology and the fact that I just constantly think about shit most of the time anyway. Right. And so then I'm like, well, then if I know this person, and if I knew what this person was thinking, well, all we're going to do is just get an expert. So then the experts come into it, and you're saying like, how can I anticipate what this person's going to do? And how can I create leverage to end a case? Like, and so you're looking at it from that standpoint, and not like, it's not what the client necessarily comes to you for, but if you have an expertise in something, it's what the client needs to hear.
Right.
And so that's kind of where, that's where it is now, to that like big picture, how do we really help this family? Not just, and a lot of times that means you got to be successful in litigation, but how can we be prepared so well for litigation that we settle in mediation? Like, that benefits everyone. Not having a judge decide how much parenting time you're going to have. Guy's a stranger. Like, be prepared. Let the other side know early on, look, this is our case and we're absolutely prepared, and this is our reputation for being prepared and being effective, right? So, and all that stuff I learned from failures, from, not being prepared that one time. Yep. And since then, it's like just something that's a mantra of mine, it's
awesome. I love it.
Right?
I love it. So like, what about the other areas of your firm? Like, you do personal injuries, civil, you do some criminal. Are those other your associates?
Yeah, no, man. Like, the way that I do it is I tried to find the best possible people that knew these areas of law and shared the same kind of vision I have for representing people, right? And it took a long time of going through a lot of people and not being satisfied with someone that was really knowledgeable but didn't get along well with the others in the office.
Yeah.
Or was really, it got along well with people but didn't, wasn't paying attention to details. And so I find these people over time, and you find them from other places, they apply, or you build them up from young attorneys. And you have the right mindset, and you find those people that are knowledgeable and passionate about an area of the law that I don't know that well.
Right.
I'm not that expert. I know domestic relations. So these other areas though were offsets. Like, for example, it fascinates me that more people don't sue domestic violence perpetrators.
Right.
You sue them civilly, right? Like that's like creating leverage upon leverage.
Yeah.
And it's different in a domestic relations case.
Yeah.
So I find, and finally I have assembled a team that I'm just proud of. They just
Great.
They do it.
Yeah. So you have 6 offices, 50 employees. Like, so how did you, like, what did you use, like the concepts to help you grow over the past 8 years?
It was, I got lucky. I also learned the art of, I hate saying it, but it's like the art of not being satisfied with people and their performance.
So you're a tough, are you a tough boss? Like, you're sort of.
I used to be, like, until one person, like, until I found that person that was going to be able to run it, like and this was me growing along the way too. Like, you saw emails to people, I was like, we suck, this is terrible, like, and it's like, and I just, everything about it was about coaching.
Yeah.
And so it's just the things that I know were lacrosse and building a team.
Right.
And I found that I wasn't doing that. I was like trying to build something that didn't feel good, and until I really brought that piece of myself and learned and became a little bit more emotionally intelligent,
Yeah.
And I found people, and you get more with honey than you do with vinegar, but they still have to have the common, like, concepts and beliefs about the practice. And if they don't, then you have to know that your first loss is your best loss. Because if you let an attorney stay on that isn't paying attention to details, and you wait 2 extra weeks, those cases are 2 more weeks away from being screwed up. Right. You're going to have to undo a lot of things, and you have to know when to do that. And over the time, like, I don't remember the last time we've let an attorney go.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, but in the beginning, it was like a revolving door as I was learning how to be a leader, how to inspire people instead of demand they do things a certain way.
So, like, we're in like a real weird, like, COVID period. I don't know how it is out where you are, but, like, what have you guys done over the past 6 months that differentiates you?
Well, I looked at this, and the way that I approach business in general is there's always an opportunity, right? And so you got to you either, like, try to survive or you try to thrive. And so what I did is we built that website. It's basically like the way that I feel about the practice and the competitive nature of who we are. And it makes sense, and it's engaging, and it was different than just the typical websites of, those, like, oh, if you want a Boulder divorce attorney, this, and then.
Right. No, the website's amazing. Like, I looked at it, I spent a few minutes on it today, and it's amazing. Everybody.
Thanks, man. I mean, it's the difference between content marketing and for SEO or SEO for content marketing. So I'm trying to keep people there and engage them, and also let them know of our authority and the fact that we care, right? So I did that, and that took months. We created, we're in the process of beta testing family law software. We found that the child support worksheets that we're not doing, that we have out here, just everything's kind of antiquated in the technology piece, in that technology space. So that should be going live pretty soon. Okay. And then we also decided, like, I don't like the way that our offices are laid out, and Colorado Springs is like our hub. So we're under contract for a building down there where we're gonna have one part of it's gonna be our offices, but also, like, really cool. And at the other side is gonna be kind of a workstations for people, kind of a WeWork concept.
That's awesome. Yeah, WeWork.
Right?
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm just trying to, constantly thinking about innovation. honing our systems and our processes, all the stuff that's kind of boring, but also really cool because when you have these moments, like we're pretty tight.
So Deep Bench with Todd Burnham.
Yeah.
I've read about it a little bit, and
You haven't listened to that, man?
I'm getting there. It's on my list. So tell me about
all that time with your baby.
I'm doing what I can with my time. It's hard, dude.
I got you.
We got a full-time job. We got the Lawyer Stories brand.
I got you.
But
it's all right.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
I've wanted to. I feel like I feel like we've gotten to a point with this firm that I wanted to really help people. Like I feel like when I'm talking to potential clients on the phone, when I'm talking to people I work with, I'm trying to inspire them, right? And I really felt like I wanted to tell my story, and so as a basis for I'm writing a book.
There you go.
Right?
Story, yeah, man.
That's it. And so I did the first season of how I built the law firm, and the second one now is the planning of what we did during COVID, and it's really just your mindset, man. It's just get your mind right,
Awesome.
And then I just wanted to give back a little bit, and it's really just just me being riffing on the concepts that I think are important if you want to build a business, let alone a law firm.
Honestly, when I want to talk about Lawyer Stories and growing this brand, hopefully we could talk offline, because
sure,
I've really noticed the theme of our recording and our podcast here. You, dude, I feel like you're a true entrepreneur. Yeah. And a lot of people they have sort of a lead, or they have something I don't want to say given to them, but they have a way to go about it, and you've absolutely done everything yourself. Yeah. And that's one of that's a true thing that I really admire. So when it comes to me on a personal end, building this global community, I definitely want your input on it, because I think it's real and legit.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
It's a big comp.
Yeah.
I look back and I sit back and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool, you know? And I'm just most proud of the fact that I've attracted the most talented people, even the administrative people. They're they bought in, to doing things the right way. And that's, I was never like this.
How many attorneys do you have working for you now?
I think we're close to 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So, wow. So where can your podcast be found?
Spotify or Apple.
Okay, good.
Deep Bench with Todd Burnham. I just did 2 episodes we did it in seasons like Netflix.
Okay.
So I did 20 episodes first year. And I'm going to do 20 more. And we have 2 that should be the second season should drop on Wednesday.
That's awesome. That's
right.
Really cool. So I do want to ask you about something. So I read on your website, another thing I'm a big NFL fan. What's that?
I love it.
Yeah, no, I love football. Actually, as of this recording, my Patriots are playing right now, the Chiefs.
Without Cam,
because their game got moved, but that's okay. So I noticed that you do a lot of work for Von Miller's nonprofit. You're on the board of directors or whatever. It's called Von's Vision. That's super cool. Yeah, I just wanted to shout that out and ask you if you wanted to say anything about that.
It's just, look, man, I love working for children, right? Yeah. It's just, if you can't go wrong with it. I'm a coach at heart. And just watching the way that Vaughn is exemplified just a level of professionalism that's really inspiring, and he's doing something that he's passionate about. And
you get to meet it. Do you get to interact with Vaughn?
Yeah, man. He was on he was working out, and he was on a board of directors call. And I'm like, it's Von Miller. It's cool. And all the principles that I've built this over have been based on coaching principles, and everything's based on team, right? And the thing that I think of most when I think of just the sports is Bill Belichick. It's funny you
Yeah.
say, and I hate the Patriots, man.
Oh, geez, come on.
I'm
I'm
just
about to
telling you.
disconnect right now.
I mean, I understand, but you've been spoiled for 20 years, and it's
Yeah,
not
but
cool.
why?
Because, man, you had the second best quarterback and the best head coach of all
It's
time.
like capitalism, though. Like what? Like it's not cool. Like what? I mean, what should
I'm
we
just
do? Like
jealous.
give away Tom Brady to like? I don't want to
Denver?
like insult anybody from any other like state right here because.
I understand.
But like, what are we supposed to do? Like give Tom Brady away 10 years into it? I mean, like he's
Maybe
gone. He's
I
gone.
understand, but you had, what was it, 18 years with him?
20.
Man, Bill Belichick.
Well, you're right. We were so like when the first championship was like I was in college, and then what's remarkable about Tom Brady, not to turn this into a sports show, but like he went 10 years without another Super Bowl, and then he got like 2 more. Like that's ridiculous. Like in the NFL, to keep yourself in that shape, to win like 2 or 3, go 10 years, and then win more Super Bowl. It's incredible. And
Dude,
just
and he
threw 5
kept getting
touchdowns this
better.
past weekend for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, like, what are you gonna? I mean,
He threw 5 touchdowns.
it's
Yeah,
amazing. It's amazing.
but I look at these players and I'm so enthralled with athletes because they are competing at the highest level, right? And they understand the grind. And so all of these things that, I mean, even look at Brady, like he morphed the way that he was working out. He watched what he was eating as he got older. Like he adjusted his game
Yeah.
as he got older. And I love that. And Bill Belichick is just such an inspiration, man. Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, Kobe, I think Kobe Bryant and Bill Belichick are the 2 of the people that have influenced me so much. And Belichick always says, don't tell me what they can't do, tell me what they can do.
Right.
And that right there is, I think, one of the biggest keys to running a business. It's like you get the wrong offensive coordinator who comes in and he wants these guys to run his system, but you got to put the system around the people, not the people around the system. And so the parallels with sports and in particular football are all over the podcast because that's all I've known.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I relate to and I'm passionate about.
Wow. No, that's awesome. Like I really, I dig that. That's super cool. So in closing, so is there anything else, Todd, that you want to tell Todd Burnham Law? Check him out, Boulder, Colorado. He's got like 100 other offices down there, maybe 6 or 8 other offices. Denver.
We're looking at going into California and
Cali.
Texas, and Wyoming. So
that's awesome. Is
no,
there
man,
anything else you want to
say,
tell everybody out there today?
What's that? What do
Is
I
there
want?
anything else that you want? How can people get in touch with you? Is there any closing?
Burnham Law, man. BurnhamLaw.com. And even like, if you have questions about running a firm, like I love talking to people. Like I want to help. And I think that's what, the next phase for this is when you get to a point where when you have like a really solid business and a really solid law firm that's providing value, you also got to know when to turn it over to those people that have helped you build it. And I'm in the process of doing that now. I feel really good about kind of at this point beginning an exit. And I never thought that I would do that. Wow. And it's just such a solid thing run by people that are just exceptional at what they do. I want to be able to start doing more of the consulting, and that's kind of where I'm heading. So
that's amazing. So
see what happens. I don't know.
Congratulations, man. It's been awesome talking to you. Wicked cool dude.
Thank you.
And really awesome. Check out Burnham Law, BurnhamLaw.com.
BurnhamLaw.com.
So if you want to check out Lawyer Stories, we're on Instagram, lawyer_stories.
Legit stuff, Benny. I love what you're doing, man.
Thanks.
I really do.
I appreciate it. We're working really hard at it. We want to build the biggest global community you ever did see, and just be like a household name and people connecting through their stories. Because, the thing is like there might be somebody who has a story in the US, and somebody might connect with it who's out there in like Ukraine, and I think like the way that people connect on like a different level, and it's a good way to humanize lawyers because our profession is something that people just list, this is where I went to school, this is what I did, this, but that's not, I don't think that's what makes the superior lawyer. I think the lawyer needs to be able to connect with the client, and I think clients would love to know a little bit more about attorneys. So we humanize the profession. We're out there building a huge global network, and I'm having a lot of fun on this podcast. It was awesome to talk to you today, Todd. Thanks for being on it.
Benny, it's not many people, you can't get across authenticity on websites if you're not trying to do that. But the way that people can, and that's what people want, you know? They don't want the BS. They just want to know, what do you really stand for, right? And what you're providing is giving people an opportunity to be authentic. And that is marketable, you know?
Yeah,
people should want to be on this a lot, because you don't get 45 minutes or whatever to, it's not like, all right, my name is Todd Burnham, I'm an attorney. Like, no one wants that, But
that's because that's where it is everywhere. You see it if somebody sends me a story that's basically copied and pasted from the website, I send it back and I say, no. Like, this is, and I'm nice about it. I say, this is, so like, think about these questions to help you generate a better response. Like, it's sort of, like, what were your challenges, your inspirations, and your motivations to becoming an attorney? I mean, I know I had them, and I feel like a lot of people, but some people don't. I mean, look, some people were like super book smart. They went to top colleges. They never had to struggle through anything, and they crushed, the bar exam the first try. They got into a top firm. Like, they don't have any of that stuff, but that's okay. Like, I don't. I think that's okay. But I think there are a lot. See, I think lawyers are sociologists at heart, and I think that connects to being emotionally intelligent. I think we have more reasons about why we all went to law school than like another profession.
Sure.
So I think those need to be shared with clients, and I think and they need to be shared within the profession too. I
agree. There's a shift, Benny. There has to be a shift. If nothing else, over this time, you see what people really are looking for, right? They're looking for, they have more time to investigate, and they want authentic authority.
Right.
True people that are the best at what they do.
And I'm going to put that lawyer story stamp on everybody who wants it. I mean, if they share their stories. So,
dude, I think that's great. And it takes a little bit for people to come on and share who they are.
And it does. I mean, look, because I think vulnerability is such a tough part of our profession, because you have to be a tough guy to go in there and win a case. And like, people don't want to be vulnerable. And I get that. But honestly, like, I found I've been most successful when I've just been like, when I've seen people who have kind of just been themselves. Like, why would anybody put on a front? That's what people want. So
exactly. So I think I love what you're doing, and
thanks,
I think
man.
You're going to have a lot of success as you keep going, and just keep getting better. Keep doing that, and you're going to be good.
I appreciate it, man. I'm open to any advice. Email me anytime. So with that said, everybody's out there in the Lawyer Stories community, hit us up anytime for a feature. We appreciate it all. I love talking to everybody individually. That's a big distinction with Lawyer Stories. We love connecting with everybody we feature. And wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.
The Lawyer Stories podcast is produced by Marketing the Law. Are you looking at your social presence every day? Potential clients are. Learn how to magnetize your brand with the help of Marketing the Law. Find us on Instagram at Marketing the Law to learn more.